fans, welcome back to 237, back with another review of a A24 horror film. Now, if you follow my channel, you know that I am a huge fan of the production company A24. They're my absolute favorite company for modern horror films. And recently, they've just become my favorite film company, modern film company overall. I've been going through wanting to do all of A24's horror films. And then I've even been going outside of horror, checking out some thrillers, some dramas, and reviewing those as well. I've gone through their entire catalog, made the list of all the ones I want to get to, and this is the 15th A24 horror film that I've reviewed, the 19th A24 film overall that I've reviewed. In fact, I think after this one, there's only 2 or 3, maybe 4 other like actual horror films by them that I had to get to. And this was one that I think came out in 2017, but 2016. But I did not see it when it first came out, and that is The Blackcoat's Daughter. You think this would have been one of the first ones I checked out? Like many other A24 films, it's also got a lot of good reviews. I think it has one of the lower ratings of a horror film on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's at like 73. But I had heard nothing but good things about this, and I checked out a trailer. It seemed very interesting. Just watched it for the first time. You know, it was directed by Oz Perkins. It was written and directed by Oz Perkins, who also directed the I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in Your House. Although technically this was made first but released second, so this is his directorial debut. And it stars Emma Roberts, Kiernan Shipka, Lucy Boynton, Lauren Holly from Dumb and Dumber. I don't think I've seen her in anything else but Dumb and Dumber. And James Remar, Dexter's dad, Harry Morgan himself. Always cool when he shows up. And I wasn't really sure what I was getting into with this. I knew it was going to have... I knew it had some murder. I knew it probably had something to do with some sort of satanic element, possession, whatever. I kind of figured it was going to go that route. The trailer didn't really give me a whole lot, and then even just reading the synopsis on the back, I had no idea what I was going to get into with this. But yeah, the cinematography was done by Julie Kirkwood, and the music was done by Elvis Perkins, the director's brother. Which I guess he said he found the experience of scoring a film to be very confining, and it almost killed him. He had never scored a film before. But the score is actually one of the highlights of the whole movie. I thought the score was great. It definitely enhanced the mood and the atmosphere more than just the film itself. I also loved the rendition of the old folk song, Blackcoat's Daughter, used in the end credits. It kind of reminded me of like the one at the end of like Mad Men or the original My Bloody Valentine. I love when they put old, traditional folk songs over the end credits. I really liked that. And I can't really explain what I thought it was going to be without getting into spoilers, because essentially this is a mystery. I mean, I know normally people think a mystery, something happened, who's responsible, we find out at the end. But it's more of a mystery because we have these two storylines going on at the same time. These two girls at the Catholic boarding school, and then this other girl who catches a ride with James Remar and his wife, going across state New York, trying to get to that school. And the mystery is, what do these two stories have to do with each other? Eventually, they do intertwine, and whether it does or it doesn't make sense to people, because this does have a very Lynchian feel to it. the way it gives us hints or clues or nods as to what's going on is definitely more of like a show not tell way of giving it to us. It's all the clues are more visual rather than just straight up exposition, which I really appreciated. This is not a spoon-fed film. I even still found myself kind of confused in a few areas. Uh, Actually, what I initially took away from the ending wasn't far off, but it was still wrong, I guess. But yeah, not just a David Lynchian way of sort of explaining things and still being kind of surreal or confusing, or just giving us a tiny bit but not giving us everything. Also has this Lynchian just kind of atmosphere and dreadful tone and atmosphere to it. I said atmosphere twice. Just lost where I was for a second. Now, along with the score, the other good thing I could give it is the performances. I mean, we really have the three girls, James Remar and Lauren Holly. Those are really our main characters. I mean, a there's the headmaster. I think they call him Gordon, Mr. Gordon. Uh, I'm guessing the principal type character, and then a nun and a nurse. Those are supporting characters. But the story is basically we're coming up to a February break, and all the other kids have gone home. All the other girls have gone home with their parents. But Kat, played by Kieran Shipka, and um, Kat. Oh God, what was her name? Because Joan is Emma Roberts. I keep wanting to say Lucy, but that's the name of the actress. Rose. Um, so Kat and Rose, their parents don't pick them up, but for two different reasons. Kat thinks her parents are dead. She gets some kind of premonition dream that they died in a car accident. Rose just intentionally gave her parents the wrong date to buy her some time to tell her boyfriend about a possible pregnancy. Now, uh, the director, Oz Perkins, said he wanted to do a film about loss, but kind of masqueraded as a horror film, particularly the satanic or demonic possession subgenre. And you do get a sense of, the story really does have these tones of not just loss and grief, but also uh, abandonment, uh, other stuff like that. It does deal with loneliness on different levels. And really, we have these two very, very different girls who are left alone by their parents, again, for different reasons. And one has to look after the other one because Rose is a senior, Kat is a freshman. But Kat is kind of portrayed as this very proper, quiet, I don't really want to say prudish, but very proper, I guess. Whereas Rose, she sneaks out to go see her boyfriend, smokes cigarettes, might be pregnant. Anytime you want to show a bad teenager, just show him smoking cigarettes because it's the movies. It just these very two different personalities, and one seems to be stalked by or seeing some sort of satanic presence, sort of being lured by it, and the other one is in danger because of it. That's as much as I'm going to give for that. And yeah, Emma Roberts as Joan is trying to get to the school. And we find out bit by bit throughout the film what these two stories have to do with each other. Now, I will say the narrative structure for how this goes back and forth between the two, especially during the climax, it can get a bit confusing. Is kind of non-linear, I guess, but it still felt like an A24 film, but I don't know if it's just some of the stuff that happens or just some of the horror scenes. It felt more like your mainstream throwaway kind of supernatural film. There's even a part where Kat is laying under her covers and she's like breathing heavy, and then all of a sudden, just very quickly, we see her rise up to her feet in the bed, but she's like completely contorted backwards, like the last exorcism. Or Rose walks by the boiler room door and kind of sees her doing this very quick, like bowing in front of the boiler. It didn't even really have that kind of sleek, indie, artsy kind of cinematography that most A24 films have. I'll say this was kind of more in line, technically, with something like False Positive, or I might even say The Monster, but it felt less like an A24 film and more like I really don't want to say Blumhouse, but like a good or glorified Blumhouse film. Like if someone had just put this in and played it, I might have thought this was. I definitely would not have guessed A24. Uh, I probably just would have thought, oh, this is just a very well written, very interestingly put together Blumhouse film. I don't know if it's just the content or the kind of story it is. I mean, the way it all comes together is a very smart, clever, well written a revelation, which you know is apropos for A24. But the story itself does get it, even the cinematography doesn't have that A24 look. But the score is fantastic. The performances are there. Very little dialogue. You don't really get a whole lot of dialogue from Shipka or Roberts. They're mostly very visual. And Shipka's transformation visually in this film is eerie. I mean, going for like when her hair's tied back and done up and she's all proper. And then by the end of the film, where she's just got black around the eyes and she just looks. Can't say too much more. Her visual transformation is wild. Also, the visuals we get of this of Satan or the satanic entity, I like how that's done because it's either in the background, out of focus, or in sort of like a warped reflection or a silhouette, which it kind of just looks like this black shadow with these two large straight horns, almost kind of like a jackal. But there is a scene where we do actually get to see it. But even then, it's just solid black, like this heap with giant ears. It looks like it's got scraggly hair. No articulation whatsoever. It's very vague looking and very different looking. And even that's very Lynchian. I appreciated that. It didn't go for like a generic kind of like kind of face or anything like that. And mostly showing it out of focus in the background, I really liked as well. But yeah, I definitely did not see where the story was going, even with hints that any other movie would just give the movie away. I was still kind of like, well, how does that make sense? Like, even when they give you a little bit, it'll explain something, but then it just kind of gives more questions than answers. But it does tie itself up nicely at the end. So, unfortunately, I don't know if this would break my top 10 favorite A24 horror films. If it did, it would be like 10 or 9. Uh, I would put most other ones that I've reviewed over this one. But I'll be doing countdowns after I do all the ones I want to do. So, with that, I'm gonna. Well, can I recommend this? Sure. I mean, if you like the kind of supernatural, darker, I guess more religious type horror films, especially dealing with like possession, then definitely check it out. If you're totally against slow burn films, because this is a slow burn, if you're against slow burns, if you need to be spoon fed exposition or literally see everything that's happening, like the scene where Rose walks down, sees Cat down in the boiler room bowing, but you're like, how did she get there? They just show her walking in there. Did she just appear? We need the exposition scene of how she walked. Then this is not for you either. But I can say there are worse A24 horror films. I put this over False Positive. I'd put this over. Might put this over The Monster. I'm not quite sure. Put this over the hole in the ground. But it's still very well made. It's still well shot, well written, well acted, great score. Even a very interesting narrative with how it's put together. I guess it just all adds up to just personal preference, story, and what it's about, I guess, just for my personal taste. But it does deserve sort of the praise that it got. Not really acclaim, but a lot of people seem to like it. So, now, spoilers. So, one of the first kind of hints we get, well, one obvious thing to think would be James Remar and Lauren Holly are the parents of either Kat or Rose, which is true, and that Emma Roberts has something against one of the two girls. That's why she's going there. That's probably the most obvious initial thought. But James Remar starts to talk about his daughter, how you remind me of her. We lost her 9 years ago. Now, my initial thought was, because he says, I have a picture of her, and he goes to hand it to her. My initial thought was, it's got to be Kat, because they both got like short blonde hair. But no, it's actually Rose. But then you're thinking, wait, 9 years ago, but she's there? So, like, it's one of those things where, okay, they're Rose's parents, but now I'm even more confused. And the real mystery overall for what these two plots have to do with each other is Emma Roberts, James Remar, and Lauren Holly. In the car is present day. Everything at the boarding school is 9 years ago. And we're kind of seeing how Rose was killed, everything else that happened there. It also hints to stuff with Emma Roberts, like it shows her staring at the mirror after a shower or a bath. And she gets this flashback of someone shooting her. We see a bullet hole wound in her shoulder. So there's stuff like that. In the very beginning, we see her breaking out of a hospital, ripping the bracelet off. So we're like, what does she have to do with all this? Come to find out, she's the older version of Kat. Kat made a deal with the devil, which, I mean, the whole movie really kind of shows its cards during the opening scene. But again, it's so mysterious and cryptic, even with its hints, where it has Kat talking to the headmaster. And, he's saying how he's going to be gone during break. And, she's saying, well, I wanted you to see my performance. And then she just kind of looks away, kind of starts to smile like she's zoning out. But we see nothing. And then by the end of the film, you realize, Satan was there. We just didn't see it yet. So, and the whole thing, even when she says, when she's kind of starting to lose it after being possessed, um, when she says Gordon said I can come live with uh, him because my parents are dead. Which also, like the phone call she gets about her parents, we don't hear what's on the other line. It's all her facial expressions. Again, it's very visual in its exposition. But yeah, she makes a deal with the devil to kill some people as a sacrifice, and he will take care of her, essentially. So, but she starts, getting black around the eyes, being more looking more insane, and that's what I meant by transformation. Thankfully, she doesn't do any, like, your mother sucks cocks in hell, exorcist type stuff. She does call the elderly nurse a cunt, though, which I was surprised by. But she kills them, kills Rose, cuts their head off, puts it down by the boiler, and then we jump to 9 years later. Because also, it makes it seem like Emma Roberts might have something against one of these two girls, because after she finds, looks at the picture, she has to excuse herself, goes to the bathroom, kind of laughs, like, you gotta be kidding me. And I don't know if I buy Emma Roberts being the elder version of Kiernan Shipka. Uh, uh, what I took from it was, because the last time we see Kiernan Shipka, she's in an insane asylum. The headmaster comes, performs an exorcism, and she looks over, sees the shape kind of walk away. She says, "Don't go." But, so I thought, oh, he just went over, possessed this other girl. And kind of the memories and the deal kind of carried over into her. But then I started to think, well, wait, then how would she have the bullet wound? And it started to make less sense. I was like, okay, I guess she's just the older version. Why she looks so different, I have no idea. I mean, I don't think she would change that much in 9 years. I'm guessing the only reason why was to really play up the twist that they're two different people. Or to hide the twist that they're the same person, I should say. But yeah, so after this revelation, she kills James Remar, Lord Hawley, cuts their heads off, makes it back to the school, which has been condemned, goes down to the boiler. And I like how this is done because when she's Kiernan Shipka, she's down by the boiler, it's roaring. You can kind of feel the heat because the rest of the movie has this very gray, white, snowy, just tone and feel. But the boiler, you can almost feel the heat coming off your TV. But when she goes down this time, she even puts her hand on it. It's just been off for so long. It's cold. And then it just ends with her going back outside, standing in the road, crying and screaming because Satan did come. She performed the sacrifice again, and he didn't come back for her. He abandoned her, I guess. So, kind of playing up the loss and abandonment themes throughout the entire film. I mean, whether a kid is forgotten at school, like forgot to get picked up, or you do this long-awaited sacrifice and the devil does come back for you. But also, with Remar and Hawley, just their loss for their daughter, the way they deal with it. James Remar talks fondly about her to people, wants to help young women, whereas Hawley just talks about all the bad shit, gets mad when he talks about, we had a daughter, but doesn't mention that she was killed, and she's all about that. He's trying to make the best of it. She's kind of reaping in the tragedy. So it handles its themes well enough, I guess. yeah, like I said, it gives us very cryptic visual hints and clues. The only real example I can think of on top of my head would be like, oh, here's the picture. We lost her 9 years ago. But like, wait, how does that add up? And then, the bullet hole, but then we see Kiernan Shipka getting shot by the officer at the end. And the climax is jumping between all of these the different stories. It's two different timelines, but really jumping between these three different perspectives, I guess. Because it does come up, it'll say Kat, Rose, Joan at the beginning of the film. So it bounces between all these different perspectives. But yeah, the overall mystery is what these two plots have to do with each other. One was 9 years ago, one's present day, one's the younger version of this one. And the overall theme is not just grief and loss, but abandonment and being forgotten, or maybe not being forgotten, but the isolation and loneliness that being abandoned can bring. But it also does a good job at kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Evoking that isolation. Because like, when it shows the girls walking through the halls of the school at night, it's just very vacant, very echoey. And then with the ending credits, we have that awesome, classic folk rendition of the Blackcoat's Daughter song. And even the title, it could mean Blackcoat's daughter, like, the headmaster, who I guess said he would look after Kat, or maybe that's just something she thought up of. But the beginning of the film, and even throughout up until the revelation, we're led to believe that she looks up to him as some sort of father figure. Or just Blackcoat, as in, like, Satan. Like, it shows that he's covered in hair, like a black coat. And, she's doing all this to serve him and be taken care of by him. So, the title itself goes both ways. So, I do commend the writing. I do commend the unique and non-linear way that the story's told. I commend the acting, the score. I do commend the cinematography, even though it's nowhere near as strong as most of A24's horror catalog. I still did very much enjoy the film, of course. Even a bad A24 horror movie, there's still going to be good stuff to say about it. But would it break my top 10? Probably not. I mean, it very well could be an honorable mention, but I don't think this is going to be in my top 10 A24 horror films. And that could just be because 1 through 9, or even, I really, really love, and are some of my favorite horror films since 2010. But I have a few more to get to. Some I have to order online, and it's going to take longer to get here just because their release history has just been crazy. But I have a few more to get to. I have a few more to order. And then when I do all those, then I'll do the countdown videos, collection videos. And so, but I'm almost done with just horror films alone by A24. And then some thrillers, some crime films, what have you. But, so stay tuned for all those, and thank you for watching.